I was 32 weeks pregnant when the email arrived, and for one suspended second, I thought it was just another gift notification. My phone buzzed on the kitchen counter while I was rinsing strawberries, and I smiled before I even looked at the screen. I had spent the last 2 months building that baby registry the way some women build a nursery wall by wall, with hope, with care, with the quiet kind of love that lives in tiny decisions. The bottle set Ethan and I had argued over in Target. The soft woodland blanket I picked after midnight because it reminded me of the camping trips my dad used to take me on. The nursing cart supplies I added in a moment of honesty after realizing motherhood wasn't just pastel onesies and baby photos. It was recovery. It was exhaustion. It was me. So when I saw the subject line, "Your registry has been updated," I frowned, wiped my wet hands on a dish towel, and opened it. At first, I thought I clicked the wrong email. The stroller I had researched for 3 weekends was gone. The bassinet I had chosen because it actually fit in our small guest room-turn nursery had been replaced with a bulky cream-colored one I had already said no to twice. My postpartum care kit had disappeared completely, along with the breast pads, the Perry bottle, and the simple black nursing bras I'd added without telling anyone because I was still getting used to the fact that my body was about to stop being mine alone. In their place were things I never chose. Monogrammed blankets in a shade of blue I hated. A silver spoon set no newborn on earth needed. A lace-trimmed coming-home outfit that looked more like something for a porcelain doll than a real baby. I stood there in my socks, staring at my phone while the faucet kept running, and a cold little feeling slid down my spine. Then I opened the registry app. That was when it got worse. Items marked as purchased that I had never seen before. Notes added under certain gifts. Classic choice, much better than the original. Trust me, you'll thank me later. And the nursery theme I had spent nights curating, the little woodland animals and soft sage greens that made me feel calm every time I looked at it, had somehow turned into pale blue satin. And traditional baby boy essentials. My hand drifted to my stomach without me thinking, and my son kicked once, hard enough to make me inhale sharply. "I know," I whispered, though I wasn't sure if I was talking to him or to myself. Because I hadn't touched that registry in 3 days. Not since Ethan and I sat on the couch Sunday night and laughed over whether our son really needed a wipe warmer. Not since I logged out and set my phone aside and told myself that for once, something about becoming a mother still felt fully mine. I scrolled to the bottom of the email, my pulse starting to pound in my ears. There, in small gray text, was the timestamp. The device. The location. Someone had logged in. Someone had gone line by line through the list I made for my baby and decided my choices didn't matter. And before I even said her name out loud, I already knew exactly who thought she had the right. For a long moment, I did not move. The faucet ran over my fingers until the water turned cold, and still I stood there staring at that tiny line at the bottom of the screen like it had just cracked something open in my life. It was not just that my registry had been changed. It was that someone had gone inside something intimate and private and rearranged it until it looked like their version of my motherhood instead of mine. I turned off the sink, set my phone down carefully, and braced both hands against the counter. The kitchen smelled like coffee and lemon dish soap and the banana bread I had baked that morning, but suddenly none of it felt comforting. Everything felt too bright, too sharp, too exposed. I wish I could say I was shocked because Linda had always been kind, always respectful, always the kind of mother-in-law people post about online when they want to make other women jealous. But that would not be true. Linda had been smiling and controlling from the day Ethan brought me home to meet her. The first time I ever sat at her dining room table, she corrected the way I folded my napkin before I even picked up my fork. She did it with a laugh, like it was a joke, like she was just being playful. Ethan laughed too, because that was what everyone did around Linda. They laughed first and questioned later, if they questioned anything at all. When I got pregnant, it got worse in ways that were so small at first I kept telling myself I was imagining them. She never outright insulted me. She never raised her voice. Linda was too polished for that. Instead, she made observations. She tilted her head and said things like, "Are you sure your doctor is comfortable with that?" Or "We did things differently when I had Ethan. But I suppose every generation needs to learn the hard way." At 12 weeks, she criticized the prenatal vitamins I bought because they were not the brand she liked. At 16 weeks, she frowned at the stroller I bookmarked and called it flimsy, even though every review said it was one of the safest on the market. At 20 weeks, She came over for dinner, walked into the nursery without asking, and stood in the doorway long enough to make me feel like a guest in my own home. Woodland animals, she had said, lifting one of the tiny green crib sheets between two fingers. That is sweet. A little trendy, but sweet. I remember forcing a smile so hard my cheeks hurt. Ethan had squeezed my shoulder and murmured, "She means well, Claire." That was his favorite sentence when it came to his mother. She means well. As if good intentions could excuse every trespass. As if I was supposed to be grateful that she crossed lines with perfect lipstick and a calm voice. I picked up my phone again and opened the Registry app one more time, slower this time, letting each change settle into me. This was not random. This was not a glitch. This was Linda doing what Linda always did when something mattered to me. She stepped in quietly, improved it according to her standards, and expected everyone to thank her for the privilege. The only difference now was that this was not a centerpiece or a Thanksgiving menu or the color of the guest towels in the downstairs bathroom. This was my baby. And for the first time since I married Ethan, I had proof. I sat down at the kitchen table and forced myself to slow down. Panic would not help me, and Linda had always counted on emotion making other people sloppy. I opened the Registry on my laptop instead of my phone, then pulled the screen closer until my knees touched the edge of the chair. Outside, the late afternoon sun was sliding across our backyard fence, turning everything gold in that soft suburban way that usually made me feel safe. Our little neighborhood in Columbus was quiet except for a lawn mower somewhere down the block and the occasional bark of a dog. It should have felt ordinary. It should have felt like any other Tuesday. But the moment I started clicking through the Registry item by item, I realized this was far more deliberate than I first thought. The stroller was not just replaced. It had been swapped for the exact luxury model Linda had pointed to in Nordstrom 2 weeks earlier, the one she said looked dignified, as if a stroller needed to wear pearls. The glider Ethan and I had chosen after measuring the nursery 3 separate times was gone, replaced with a tufted cream rocker that looked beautiful online and impossible to clean in real life. My practical postpartum cart had been stripped bare. No cooling pads, no nipple cream, no plain cotton robes, no nursing-friendly pajamas. Those items had not been accidentally removed. They had been erased with intention, like someone did not want the messy, honest parts of motherhood acknowledged at all. In their place were silver rattles, embroidered burp cloths, a framed scripture print for the nursery wall, and a 3-piece infant outfit labeled Heirloom Collection. I clicked on the purchased items next. My chest tightened. Several of them had notes attached, and every note sounded like Linda in a different shade of lipstick. More appropriate for a Bennett baby. Classic never goes out of style. Mother knows best. I read that last one twice. Mother knows best. Not grandmother. Not Linda. Mother. My fingers went still on the keyboard. Then I clicked into the account settings, and that was when the room seemed to tilt under me. The default shipping address had been changed. Not to our house. Not to the front porch where Ethan had already started stacking diaper boxes and paint samples and half-assembled nursery furniture. It had been changed to Linda and Robert Bennett, 14, Hawthorne Lane, Dublin, Ohio. Her house. I stared at it until the letters blurred. A few gifts had already been marked as shipped. They were not coming to me. They were going to her. I could suddenly picture it too clearly. Linda in her pristine foyer, opening boxes addressed to my baby, deciding what stayed, what came over later, what she would unveil like some benevolent queen at the shower. She kept hinting she should host instead of my sister. My son had not even been born yet, and she was already building a claim. I clicked deeper into security settings, purchase logs, anything I could find. The site listed recent account activity, and there it was again, plain and unemotional in black text. Login from a remembered device. Yesterday afternoon. Safari browser. Dublin. My mouth went dry. Yesterday afternoon was when I had been at my glucose test, sitting in a paper gown under fluorescent lights while a nurse told me to drink something orange and too sweet. Ethan had been at work. Linda had texted me a heart emoji and asked how the appointment went. I leaned back slowly in my chair, one hand over my stomach, and my son kicked again like he felt the tension in me. That was when a memory surfaced so sharply it made my skin prickle. 2 Sundays ago, Linda had been in this exact kitchen, standing exactly where I was standing when the email came in, smiling at my open laptop while I ran upstairs to throw up. And when I came back down, she had looked at the registry page and said, in that warm, polished voice of hers. If you get overwhelmed, sweetheart, I can always take care of these little details for you. I did not call Linda. I did not text her. I did not do what the old version of me would have done, which was rush straight into confrontation and give her time to smooth everything over with that soft voice and those polished little smiles. Instead, I sat there and let the memory play all the way through. 2 Sundays ago, she had shown up with a paper bag from the bakery, cinnamon rolls still warm, acting like she was dropping by to spoil me. Ethan had been outside trying to figure out why the garage light kept flickering, and I had been nauseous on and off all morning, the kind of deep, rolling pregnancy nausea that made every smell in the house feel personal. Linda offered to make tea. Then she offered to help me organize the baby shower guest list. Then she leaned over my shoulder while I scrolled through the registry, humming thoughtfully every time she disliked something. I remembered exactly how she said it. Not rude. Never rude. Just patient in a way that made me feel childish. Are you sure about this brand, Claire? That fabric pills. That company had a recall in 2019, I think. That color is cute, but it might photograph a little flat. It was always like that with her. Death by 1,000 polished suggestions. Then I had to run upstairs because the smell of cream cheese frosting suddenly made me feel sick. I left my laptop open on the kitchen island because I was gone less than 5 minutes. When I came back, she was standing in front of it with her hand resting lightly on the counter, looking perfectly innocent. She smiled and said, I was just admiring how much work you have put into this. If you get overwhelmed, sweetheart, I can always take care of these little details for you. At the time, I thought it was another passive-aggressive comment. Now it felt like a confession I had been too tired to hear. I opened my browser history and searched the date. Then I checked the saved passwords on my laptop. My stomach tightened so hard I had to exhale through my nose. The registry site was listed under saved logins, and the last updated timestamp matched that Sunday afternoon almost exactly. I had not saved it. I never saved shopping passwords on shared devices, especially not after Ethan accidentally ordered $200 worth of grilling tools last Christmas because one of his apps had auto-filled. I knew what that meant. Linda had either saved the login herself while I was upstairs, or she had used the browser settings to make sure she could come back later without needing my password again. I sat very still, one hand on the edge of the table, the other over my stomach, and let that settle in. This was not just controlling behavior anymore. This was access. Deliberate, calculated access. And suddenly other moments began lining up in my mind with sickening clarity. The time she asked for the exact date of my baby shower invitations before my sister could send them. The time. She insisted on seeing the nursery dimensions because she was just curious. The way she had laughed when I told her I wanted to keep the first week after delivery quiet and private. Oh, honey, she had said, first-time mothers always make plans like that. Then family arrives, and reality sets in. I had thought she was dismissing me. Now I realized she had been preparing. She was not just waiting for my baby to arrive. She was laying claim to every step before he even got here. I looked back at the shipping address, then at the purchased gifts, then at the login activity, and for the first time since that email hit my inbox, the shock inside me cooled into something steadier, something sharper. Linda had spent years teaching everyone around her that she knew best. Fine. If she wanted to play this quietly, then I would too. But I was done being the easiest person in the room to override. When Ethan came home that evening, the house looked exactly the way it always did at 6:30. The dishwasher hummed softly in the kitchen. The lamp by the couch was on because I hated how early it got dark in late October. The banana bread I had baked that morning was still under the glass dome on the counter, untouched except for the slice I had forced myself to eat around noon. Everything looked normal, which somehow made it worse. Ethan dropped his keys into the ceramic bowl by the door and called out, "Hey, beautiful," before he even saw me. He was carrying takeout from the little Italian place near his office, the one he knew I liked because their pasta actually tasted like garlic instead of cream. He kissed the top of my head, rested a hand on my shoulder, and smiled down at me in that easy, familiar way that usually made me feel safe. Usually. I waited until he set the food down before I turned my laptop toward him. I did not build suspense. I did not soften it. I just said, "Your mother logged into my baby registry and changed it." He blinked once, then let out a small breath through his nose like I had just said something mildly inconvenient, not deeply violating. "Claire, come on." That was his first response. Not what happened. Not "Are you okay?" Not. Let me see. Just Claire, come on. I felt something inside me go still. I tapped the screen and showed him the changed items, the purchased notes, the shipping address at Linda and Robert's house, the login activity from Dublin. Ethan leaned in, his brow tightening as he read. But even then I could see it happening. The part of him that always rushed to make his mother reasonable before he let himself see what she had done. Maybe she was just trying to help, he said finally. I stared at him. Help. She changed my login settings. She sent gifts for my son to her house. She removed my postpartum supplies. Ethan. He rubbed the back of his neck, already uneasy. I am not saying it is not weird. I am just saying there could be an explanation. Maybe she thought she was reserving things for the shower. Maybe the address defaulted when she bought something. Maybe she was trying to clean up duplicates. I actually laughed, but there was no humor in it. Duplicates? She replaced the bassinet, the stroller, the nursery theme, and anything related to me physically recovering after giving birth. That is not cleaning up duplicates. That is rewriting the entire list. He looked down at the screen again, then back at me, and for a moment I thought maybe he finally saw it. But then he said the sentence I had been dreading all day. You know how mom gets when she is excited. There it was. The family motto. The all-purpose excuse. The polished little blanket they threw over every line she crossed. I folded my hands in my lap because they had started to shake. No, Ethan, I said quietly. I know how your mother gets when nobody stops her. That landed. I saw it in the way his face changed. Not angry exactly, but unsettled. He sat down across from me, and for the first time since he walked in, he actually looked at the details instead of the story he wanted to tell himself. He read the notes. He saw Mother Knows Best. He saw the shipping confirmations. He saw the browser activity. His mouth tightened. But even then, he still did not say what I needed him to say. He did not say I am sorry. He did not say she had no right. He did not say I will handle this. He just sat there, staring at the evidence of his mother stepping into our lives like they were hers to manage, and I realized something painful and simple at the same time. Linda was not the only problem in that room. We ate dinner at the kitchen table because neither of us had the energy to pretend things were normal in the dining room. The pasta cooled too fast. The garlic knots stayed in their foil bag. Ethan barely touched his food, which would have mattered to me any other night. Usually I noticed things like that. Usually I was the one smoothing over tension, asking the right question at the right time, making a bad evening feel temporary. But I was 32 weeks pregnant, my feet were swollen, my lower back ached, and I was suddenly looking at my marriage through a lens I had been avoiding for years. Ethan finally set his fork down and rubbed both hands over his face. I am not defending what she did, he said, though of course that was exactly what he had been doing since he walked in. I'm just trying to understand how bad it really is before we blow this up. I leaned back in my chair and looked at him for a long second. How bad it really is. The words sat between us like something sour. Then I stood up, took my laptop, and opened the registry settings again. Fine, I said. Let us understand it. I clicked through every tab slowly, making sure he saw all of it with his own eyes. The account profile, the changed preferences, the removed items, the shipping confirmations. Then I opened the order details for the gifts already marked as purchased. 3 packages had tracking numbers. 2 were listed as in transit. 1 had already been delivered at 2:14 p.m. that afternoon. Delivered to front porch. Hawthorne Lane. Signed for by L. Bennett. Ethan stared at the screen, and I watched the color leave his face little by little. She already has them, I said. Not ordered. Not reserved. Not planning to surprise us at the shower. She physically has gifts for our baby in her house right now. He did not answer, so I kept going. Because once I started, I could not stop. I opened the item history. She had removed the nursing supplies. First, then the recovery kit, then the black robe and the breast pads. Then she added the heirloom blanket, the silver spoon, the monogrammed onesies, the decorative keepsake box. Every choice said the same thing in a different language. The baby mattered. I did not. The image of Linda unboxing those items in her foyer came back so vividly it made my stomach tighten. She was not just controlling the list. She was curating the version of this experience that centered her. She wanted to be the tasteful grandmother with the classic gifts, the one who saved us from our modern mistakes. She wanted a baby shower reveal. She wanted a moment. She wanted to act like the first gatekeeper to my son before I had even packed my hospital bag. Ethan swallowed hard. Maybe she was trying to make it special, he said, but his voice sounded thinner now, weaker, like he could hear himself and hated it. I turned to him so sharply my chair legs scraped the floor. Special for who? For me? Because she removed the things I need after labor and shipped my son's gifts to her house. For us? Because she logged into my account without permission and left notes like mother knows best. Or special for her, Ethan, because your mother cannot stand not being at the center of something she did not create. He flinched. It was small, but I saw it. Then my son kicked so hard I had to grab the edge of the table and breathe through it. Ethan's eyes dropped to my stomach immediately. He stood halfway, instinctively reaching for me, but I put a hand up. Do not, I said quietly. Not until you decide if I am overreacting or if your mother crossed a line. That stopped him completely. The room went still except for the hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of the little clock over the stove. And in that silence, with his mother's choices glowing on the screen between us, Ethan finally looked less like a son trying to keep the peace and more like a husband realizing peace had been expensive all along. The next morning, Ethan texted his mother before he even left for work. He did it at the kitchen island while I stood a few feet away pretending to spread peanut butter on toast I had no interest in eating. I watched his face as he typed, watched the little tension in his jaw that only showed up when he knew he was walking into something uncomfortable. He did not let me read the message before he sent it, but he told me the summary in that careful voice people use when they know they are already behind. He asked her if she had made changes to the registry. He asked her why items were being shipped to her house. He told her we needed to talk tonight. Needed. Not wanted. Not if you have time. Needed. It was the first thing he had done in 12 hours that actually sounded like a boundary. Linda answered in less than 3 minutes. Of course, sweetheart. I was only trying to help. Dinner at 6? That was it. No apology. No confusion. No denial. Just the smooth confidence of a woman who had never been forced to explain herself before. All day, I expected to feel nervous. Instead, I felt strangely calm. Maybe because once something becomes undeniable, fear has less room to breathe. I spent the afternoon doing practical things. I changed my registry password. I took screenshots of everything before I touched the settings. I emailed the screenshots to myself and saved them in a folder on my desktop labeled nursery receipts so no one would think to look twice. I wrote down the timestamps, the item changes, the tracking numbers, the delivery confirmation. Then I closed the laptop and folded tiny baby clothes at the dining room table while the October rain tapped softly against the windows. A pair of gray socks. 3 white onesies. The little forest green sleeper with the zipper I had bought on clearance at Target because it looked like something a real baby would actually wear. Not an heirloom. Not a performance. Just soft cotton and practicality. Around 4:30, Linda texted me directly. I hear there is some confusion about the registry. Do not stress yourself out, Claire. We will clear it up tonight. The words made me smile in a way that surprised even me. Confusion. As if I had somehow wandered into my own account and misunderstood what my own eyes had seen. As if the problem was my pregnancy hormones and not her fingerprints all over my choices. I did not answer. By 5:45, Ethan and I were in the car headed to Hawthorne Lane. The sky had gone that heavy slate color that always makes the whole world look muted before dark. Ethan drove with both hands tied on the wheel, his silence thicker than the rain streaking the windshield. I rested one hand on my stomach and watched familiar streets pass by. The little church with the white steeple. The gas station on the corner where Linda once told me I should not drink fountain soda while pregnant, loud enough for the cashier to hear. The strip mall with the boutique baby store where she had tried to buy a christening outfit after I told her we were not doing one. By the time we turned into his parents' neighborhood, my pulse was steady. Not because I trusted what was about to happen. Because I did not. Linda's house looked exactly as it always did. The porch light on. The mums and matching urns. The brass knocker polished. The kind of front entry that made people think the family inside had no cracks. Robert opened the door before we even knocked. He looked surprised to see all 3 of us at once, then quickly covered it with a polite smile. Linda was in the dining room setting out salad plates like this was a normal family dinner, not an ambush of her own making. She wore a cream sweater set and pearl earrings, and when she looked up at me, her smile was warm and practiced and absolutely fearless. There you are, she said, as if she had been waiting to rescue me from myself. I was just about to show you the beautiful things I picked out for the baby. For one strange, suspended second, I almost admired her. Not because she had crossed another line. Not because she had turned my baby Registry into her own private project and shipped pieces of my son's future to her house, like she was stocking a nursery. I never approved. I admired the audacity, the composure, the way she could stand there in pearl earrings and a cream sweater, one hand resting lightly on the back of a dining chair, and act as if the problem was not what she had done, but whether I would be gracious enough to appreciate it. Ethan did not sit down. Neither did I. Robert hovered near the doorway between the dining room and kitchen, still holding a bottle of salad dressing like he had wandered into the wrong scene and was hoping nobody noticed. Linda looked from me to Ethan and smiled, that same polished smile she used at church, at holidays, at every gathering where she wanted to be seen as the calm center of the family. "I found the best bassinet," she said, almost proudly. "The one you chose was adorable, but it was honestly not substantial enough. And the stroller was all wrong for winter sidewalks. You young mothers rely too much on trends." There it was. Not an apology. Not even a lie. Just a speech. I set my purse down on the nearest chair and looked at her carefully, the way you look at something fragile right before you decide whether it is worth saving. "You logged into my private account," I said. "You changed my selections. You removed things I need after delivery. You sent gifts for my child to your home." Linda waved one hand like I was being dramatic about a table centerpiece. "Claire, please." I was streamlining. There were duplicates. There were unnecessary items. And frankly, some of what you added was a little personal. Her pause before that last word was tiny, but it was enough. She was embarrassed by the postpartum items, by the parts of motherhood that belonged to me and not to the fantasy she had built around becoming a grandmother. I felt something settle even deeper inside me. Not anger. Clarity. Ethan finally spoke. "Mom, why was the shipping address changed to your house?" Linda turned to him with the expression she had probably used since he was 5 years old and asking why he had to wear a sweater. "Because I wanted to make sure everything was safe and accounted for before the shower, sweetheart. If gifts start arriving all over town, things get lost. This way, I can organize them, inspect them, and bring over what is actually useful." I heard Robert inhale softly from the doorway. "Inspect them." As if she was quality control for my child. I pulled out my phone, opened the screenshots, and placed it on the table between us. I had all the timestamps, the login activity, the notes she left, the tracking numbers, the delivery confirmation signed L. Bennett. Mother knows best. I did not raise my voice. I did not need to. Linda glanced down, and for the first time that evening, her smile flickered. It was quick, barely there, but I saw it. So did Ethan. "You left notes in my account," I said quietly. "You did not ask. You did not suggest. You took over." Linda lifted her chin. "Someone had to." The words landed in the room like a dropped glass. Ethan stared at her. I watched his face change in real time, watched the last of his excuses fall away one by one. "Mom," he said, and there was no softness left in it now. "What exactly did you mean by someone had to?" Linda folded her hands in front of her and gave the kind of patient smile people use when they think the truth is on their side. "I mean, this baby is a Bennett," she said, "and I am not going to sit back while my first grandchild is surrounded by cheap, trendy nonsense because Claire wants to play house instead of listening to someone with actual experience." Robert closed his eyes. Ethan went completely still. And in that moment, standing in her perfect dining room with her perfect salad plates and her perfect voice finally saying the ugly thing out loud, I realized I had not come there to make her understand. I had come there to let her expose herself. The silence after that was so complete I could hear the grandfather clock in the hallway ticking down the seconds. Linda still stood there with her chin lifted, as if she had delivered a perfectly reasonable argument. Instead of confessing, she saw my son as an extension of her last name before he was even born. Robert set the salad dressing down on the sideboard without a word. Ethan looked at his mother for a long time, and I could almost see the years shifting inside him. All those moments he had brushed aside. All those polished little trespasses he had translated into love, because that was easier than calling them what they were. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and controlled in a way I had never heard before. "You logged into Claire's private account without permission. You changed her choices. You removed things she needs after giving birth. You had gifts sent here. And then you said someone had to because you do not trust my wife to prepare for our own child." Linda opened her mouth, probably to soften it, probably to say he was misunderstanding her. But Ethan did not let her. No, Mom. Not this time. You do not get to edit what you said. Her face changed then. Not much. Just enough for anyone paying attention to see the first crack. She looked at me, then back at Ethan, and tried one last time. I was trying to protect your family. Claire is emotional. She is tired. She is a first-time mother, and she does not know what matters yet. I did not realize how deeply I had been bracing myself until Ethan answered without hesitation. She is my family. Claire. My son. Our home. Not your version of it. Linda went very still. Robert finally stepped into the room and rubbed a hand over his mouth. Linda, he said quietly, that was out of line. It was the first time I had ever heard him correct her in all the years I had known them, and the shock of it seemed to hit her harder than anything I had said. She turned toward him like she could not quite believe he had spoken. I reached into my purse, took out the folded sheet of paper I had printed before we left, and placed it on the table. It was simple, not dramatic. A list. I had changed the password. I had turned on two-factor authentication. I had removed all shared access. I had created a new private registry that only Ethan and I could view. I had canceled the remaining shipments to her address and arranged for the store to reroute what they could. And at the bottom, one sentence. All decisions regarding our child, our home, and our baby shower will be made by Claire and Ethan only. Linda looked at the paper, then at me, and I watched her realize this was not a conversation she could charm her way out of. You are shutting me out, she said, and for the first time all evening, she sounded less polished and more offended. I met her eyes and kept my voice calm. No, I am shutting down access you should never have had. There is a difference. Ethan stepped beside me then, close enough that I could feel the warmth of him at my shoulder. He took the paper, signed his name under mine with the pen from his pocket, and set it back down in front of her. If you want a relationship with our son, he said, you will respect boundaries. You will not touch our accounts. You will not order, change, or reroute anything. You will not show up uninvited after the birth. And until Claire says otherwise, you are no longer involved in planning the shower. Linda stared at his signature like it had betrayed her personally. Maybe it had. I put one hand over my stomach as my son shifted, slow and steady this time. And for the first time in 2 days, my chest felt clear. We did not stay for dinner. We left the salad plates untouched, the candles unlit, the illusion broken right there in her perfect dining room. By the time we pulled into our driveway, the rain had stopped. The porch light glowed warm against the dark, and inside, our half-painted nursery waited exactly as we had left it. Ethan carried in the box of rerouted gifts the store had promised to send overnight, set it by the stairs, and stood there for a moment like he was seeing our home differently too. Linda thought she was changing a shopping list. What she really did was show us exactly where she belonged in our child's life. And for the first time since that email hit my inbox, the answer was no longer unclear.